Janet, I need $5,000 just for a few months. I'll pay you back, I promise. Denise was sitting across from me at our regular coffee shop, the same one where we'd been meeting every other Wednesday for 15 years. She had that look on her face, the one I'd seen dozens of times before. Desperation mixed with the absolute certainty that I'd say yes. I took a sip of my coffee, let the silence stretch out, watched her shift in her seat. Janet, did you hear me? 5,000. I'm in a bind and you're the only person I can ask. I heard you, I said quietly, and the answer is no. Her face went through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. Shock, confusion, then anger. What do you mean no? I mean I'm not lending you $5,000, but I need it. My car needs major repairs and I can't get to work without it. You know I'd pay you back. I set my coffee cup down carefully. Denise, you still owe me $1,200 from 2 years ago, and $800 from last year, and the $300 from April. When exactly were you planning to pay any of that back? She blinked. I thought we were friends. Friends help each other. We are friends. We've been friends for 25 years, which is exactly how I know you're never going to pay this back either. That's not fair. I've always intended to pay you back. Things have just been tight. Things have been tight for 25 years, Denise, and every time you needed money or help or someone to listen to your problems, I was there. But when's the last time you asked how I was doing? When's the last time you offered to help me with anything? She stood up, grabbed her purse. I can't believe you're doing this. After everything we've been through, you're really going to say no when I need you most? I'm really going to say no. Then I guess I know where I stand. I guess I know what our friendship is really worth to you. She walked out, left me sitting there with 2 coffees and 25 years of memories I was just starting to see clearly for the first time. If this sounds familiar, if you've ever been the friend who gives and gives until there's nothing left, stay with me. You can like this video and subscribe if you want. We talk about the friendships that look good on the surface but cost everything underneath. Let me take you back to how this started, because Denise wasn't always the person who walked out of that coffee shop. Or maybe she was, and I just didn't want to see it. I met Denise in 1999. We were both 35, both working at the same insurance company. She was in claims, I was in accounting. We bonded over bad office coffee and worse office politics. She was funny and outgoing, everything I wasn't. Being her friend felt like being part of something exciting. We started having lunch together, then drinks after work, then weekend brunches. Within 6 months, we were best friends, the kind who talked every day, who knew each other's secrets, who'd drop everything to help if the other one needed it. Except it turned out I was the only one who'd drop everything. The first time she asked to borrow money was 3 months into our friendship. $200. Her rent was short. She'd miscalculated her budget. She'd pay me back on Friday when she got paid. Friday came. She said her paycheck was smaller than expected. Next week for sure. Next week turned into next month. Next month turned into me forgetting about it because she was going through a divorce and needed my support more than I needed $200. That became the pattern. Denise always needed something, money, a place to stay, someone to talk to at 2 in the morning, help moving, a ride to the airport, someone to watch her cat for a week that turned into a month. And I always said yes, because that's what friends do. That's what I told myself. In 2002, she asked to borrow $1,000. Her rent was short. Child support wasn't coming through. She had 2 kids to think about. How could I say no to that? She paid back $300 over the next year, said the rest would come eventually. In 2005, another $800. Car repairs, she'd lose her job if she couldn't get to work. In 2008, $1,500. Medical bills from when her daughter broke her arm. Each time she promised to pay me back. Each time I believed her, or pretended to. I kept track at first, a notebook where I wrote down every loan. But looking at that notebook made me feel petty and small, like I was keeping score of friendship. So I stopped writing it down. But I didn't stop lending money. The thing about Denise was that she was always in crisis, always one emergency away from disaster. And she'd call me crying, desperate, and how could I say no? What kind of friend would I be if I said no? But it wasn't just money, it was everything. When her daughter graduated high school in 2010, Denise asked me to help pay for the party. $500, just to make it nice for her. You know I'd do the same for you if you had kids. I didn't have kids. Never had time to date seriously enough to get there. Too busy being Denise's unpaid therapist and emergency bank. When her son got married in 2015, she asked if I could help with the wedding costs. Just $2,000. I'll pay you back from the tax return. There was no tax return. Or there was, but it went to something else more urgent. Every crisis, every emergency, every need, Denise called me first, and I showed up. Every single time. But when my mother died in 2018, Denise came to the funeral and left after 20 minutes. Said she had plans she couldn't cancel. Sent a text later, "Sorry I couldn't stay. Let me know if you need anything." I never called to take her up on that offer. Somehow I knew what I'd hear, that she was too busy, too stressed with her own problems, too something. When I got promoted at work last year, making senior financial analyst after 23 years with the company, I called Denise to celebrate. She said congratulations and then spent 45 minutes talking about her new boyfriend and how he might be the one. She didn't ask about my promotion. Didn't ask how I felt or what the new job meant or anything about me at all. That's when I started really paying attention. Started noticing the pattern I'd been too close to see. Every conversation was about her. Every phone call was her calling with a problem. Every text was her needing something. When was the last time she'd asked about my life, my job, my health, my anything? I went back through my phone, scrolled through years of messages, found exactly 3 times in 5 years that Denise had asked how I was doing. And 2 of those were followed immediately by her own crisis that took over the conversation. I'd spent 25 years being her best friend, and somewhere along the way, I'd become invisible. Not a person, just a resource she could tap whenever she needed something. So when she sat across from me 2 weeks ago asking for $5,000 with that same desperate look I'd seen for a quarter century, something inside me finally broke. Not broke like shattered, broke like woke up. And I said no. The word felt strange in my mouth. Foreign. Like a language I'd forgotten I could speak. But it also felt right. Like I'd been holding my breath for 25 years and finally exhaled. The night after I said no to Denise, I couldn't sleep. Kept replaying the look on her face, the hurt, the anger, the disbelief that I'd actually refused her. I told myself I was being mean, selfish, a bad friend. At 3 in the morning, I almost texted her, almost said I'd changed my mind, she could have the money. But something stopped me. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was finally being tired of being tired. Instead, I started thinking about all the times I'd said yes when I should have said no. Like in 2012 when Denise called at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. She'd had a fight with her boyfriend and needed to talk. I had a presentation at work the next morning. Important one. But I stayed on the phone with her until 2 a.m. listening to her cry about how he didn't appreciate her. She didn't ask if I had work the next day, didn't ask if it was a bad time. Just needed someone to listen and assumed I'd be available. My presentation went badly. I was exhausted, unfocused, didn't get the account I'd been working on for months. When I mentioned it to Denise later, she said, "That sucks. Hey, can I ask you something?" And launched into asking if I could watch her kids that weekend because she wanted to go away with the boyfriend she'd been crying about 2 nights earlier. I said yes. I always said yes. Or the time in 2014 when I had the flu, real flu, not just a cold. Fever of 102, could barely get out of bed. Denise called asking if I could pick her up from the mechanic because her car was in the shop and her boyfriend was busy. I said I was sick. She said, "It's just a quick drive, 20 minutes round trip, please." I'm stranded. I drove 40 minutes in traffic feeling like I was going to pass out. When I got there, she made me wait another 30 minutes while she argued with the mechanic about the bill. Never asked how I was feeling. Never said thank you. 2 weeks later, when she had a cold, she texted me asking if I could bring her soup and cold medicine. I did. Spent 2 hours at her place making her comfortable. She never once brought me soup. I started keeping a mental list, not to be petty, but because I needed to see it clearly. 2016, I helped Denise move. Spent my entire Saturday packing boxes, loading trucks, unloading at her new place. Threw my back out lifting her couch. When I mentioned I was in pain, she said, "Oh, take some ibuprofen. You'll be fine." When I moved to a new apartment 6 months later, I asked if she could help. She said she had plans. Sent a text, "Sorry, maybe next time." There was no next time. I hired movers I couldn't really afford. 2017, Denise's daughter needed a bridesmaid dress for her friend's wedding. Denise asked if I could pay for it. $300. She's been so stressed with college applications, this would really help her out. I paid for the dress. When I graduated from my master's program later that year, the one I'd been working on at night for 3 years while working full-time, Denise didn't come to the ceremony, said she forgot it was that weekend. 2019, Denise called me crying. Her boyfriend had broken up with her. Again! She needed to talk. I'd just gotten home from a 12-hour shift, exhausted. But I listened for 3 hours while she processed her feelings. A month later, I mentioned I was feeling depressed. She said, "You should try yoga. It really helps." Anyway, I need your advice about something. She never asked why I was depressed, never checked back to see if I was okay. 2020, during the pandemic, Denise called constantly. She was lonely, scared, needed someone to talk to. I understood. We all needed connection, so I made time. Called her 3 times a week, let her vent about how hard everything was. Then I got COVID, was really sick for 2 weeks. Denise knew. I'd texted her the day I tested positive. She never once checked on me. Not a text, not a call, nothing. When I was better, she called and said, "Thank God you're okay. I've been so stressed, I haven't been sleeping. Can I tell you about it?" I spent an hour listening to her stress. She never asked about mine. That's when my friend Julie, who I'd reconnected with after years of losing touch, started noticing things. We'd been having coffee once a week. She'd known Denise back in the early 2000s, remembered us being inseparable. One day, Julie asked, "Do you and Denise still talk?" "All the time." "She's my best friend." "When's the last time she did something for you?" The question stopped me. "What do you mean?" "I mean, when's the last time Denise showed up for you the way you show up for her?" I opened my mouth to answer and realized I couldn't. Not with a specific example. Not with anything recent. "She's going through a lot," I heard myself say. "Her ex doesn't pay child support consistently. Money's always tight. She's stressed." "She's been going through a lot for 25 years, Janet. When do you get to go through something?" "It's not like that." "We help each other." "Do you? Because from what you've told me, it sounds like you help her and she takes." I defended Denise, made excuses, said Julie didn't understand the full picture. But Julie's question stayed with me. When did Denise last show up for me? I went through my calendar. Looked back through years of events, my master's graduation, my mother's funeral, my promotion celebration, my birthday dinners. Denise had missed or left early from every single one, always with a good reason, always with an apology, always with a promise to make it up to me later. She never did. But every time she needed something, I dropped everything, changed my plans, cancelled my commitments. Put her first. Because that's what friends do. That's what I kept telling myself, except friendship is supposed to go both ways, and for 25 years, I'd been the only one showing up. The only one giving. The only one sacrificing. The only one who thought our friendship meant something more than what I could provide when she needed it. I sat at my kitchen table at 3 a.m, wide awake, finally seeing clearly what I'd been too afraid to admit for decades. Denise wasn't my friend. She was my habit, my obligation, my excuse for not having the energy to build real relationships because I was too busy maintaining a one-sided one. And I'd let it happen. I'd said yes so many times that no had become impossible. A week after my 3 a.m. realization, Denise texted me, "Hey, I know you're probably still mad, but I really need that money. My car is literally broken down. Can't we work something out?" I stared at that message for 20 minutes. My first instinct was to apologize. To say I wasn't mad, of course I'd help. I was just having a bad day when I said no. That's what I'd always done. Made myself smaller so Denise could stay comfortable. But this time I wrote back, "I'm sorry you're going through this." But my answer is still no. She didn't respond, just left me on read. 2 days later, she posted on social media about fake friends who abandon you when you need them most. Didn't name me, but I knew. Her daughter commented with a heart emoji. So did 3 other people. I felt sick, guilty, like I was the villain in a story I didn't even recognize. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe everyone was right and I was wrong. Maybe real friends did help no matter what, and I was just being selfish. I called Julie. "She's posting about you on Facebook," I said. "What's she saying? That people show their true colors when you need help? That fake friends are worse than enemies? After 25 years of you helping her with everything, she's calling you fake? Maybe she has a point. Maybe I should have— Ha! Stop," Julie cut me off. "Janet, when was your birthday?" "What? Your birthday, when was it?" "Last month, March 14th. Did Denise acknowledge it?" I thought back. Scrolled through my phone. No call, no text, nothing. "She's been busy," I started to say. "She posted 12 times on Facebook that week." I checked. She wasn't too busy to post about her new diet and her daughter's job and some guy who cut her off in traffic, but she was too busy to wish her best friend of 25 years happy birthday. I sat with that, let it sink in. "When was the last birthday she remembered?" Julie asked gently. I couldn't answer, because I couldn't remember. Maybe 5 years ago, maybe longer, but I remembered every single one of hers, the gifts I'd bought, the dinners I'd paid for, the surprises I'd planned. "I just don't want to be the kind of person who gives up on people," I said quietly. "You're not giving up on her, Janet. She gave up on you a long time ago. You're just finally noticing." After I hung up, I did something I'd been avoiding. I added up all the money. Every loan, every help with this bill, every just this once. 25 years of receipts and bank statements and memory, $11,800. That's what I'd loaned Denise over the years. She'd paid back maybe $1,800 total. $10,000 I'd never see again. $10,000 I'd given to someone who couldn't remember my birthday. But it wasn't just the money, it was all the other things I couldn't put a price on. Like the time in 2013 when I was up for a promotion at work. Big one. Would have meant a 30% raise. I was stressed about the interview, practicing my presentation. Denise called the night before. "Can you come over? I'm having a crisis. I have this interview tomorrow. Big one. Can it wait?" "Please, Janet, I really need you." I went over. Spent 4 hours listening to her problems with her boyfriend. Same boyfriend, same problems. Different day. Got home at midnight. Was exhausted for my interview. Didn't get the promotion. Denise never asked how it went, or in 2018, right after my mother died, I was drowning in grief and funeral arrangements and estate issues. Denise called 3 times that week, asking me to help her with various things. Drive her somewhere, co-sign a lease, listen to her problems. "I'm really struggling right now," I finally said on the 3rd call. "My mom just died. I know, and I'm so sorry. This will just take a minute. Can you wait?" she asked anyway, and I said yes anyway, because even in grief, I couldn't say no to her. But when my father had a heart attack last year and was in the hospital for a week, Denise sent one text, praying for him, and then nothing. She didn't ask for updates, didn't offer to bring me food or sit with me at the hospital, didn't do any of the things I'd done for her countless times. When my father recovered and came home, I mentioned it casually to Denise on one of our coffee dates. She said, "Oh, good," and immediately started talking about her own problems. I sat there listening, and something inside me just went numb. This was my life. This had been my life for 25 years. Being the audience to Denise's one-woman show about her struggles while mine happened off-stage where nobody looked. Julie asked me once, "What do you get out of this friendship?" I didn't have an answer then. But sitting there that night, adding up money and moments and years, I realized what I'd gotten. Nothing. I'd gotten the feeling of being needed, which I'd confused with being valued. I'd gotten the illusion of friendship while slowly disappearing as a person who mattered. I'd gotten comfortable being invisible. And the worst part? I'd done it to myself. Nobody forced me to keep saying yes. Nobody held a gun to my head and made me lend money I couldn't afford to lose. I'd done it because I thought, that's what you did for friends. Because I thought if I just gave enough, eventually Denise would see my value and give back. But people don't change when you meet their needs. They just keep needing. A week before Denise asked for the $5,000, something happened that I kept coming back to. I was at her place helping her organize her garage. She'd asked for help, said it would take an hour. 4 hours later, I was covered in dust and exhausted while Denise sat in her kitchen on her phone. "Denise, I really need to go. I have plans tonight." "Just a little bit more. You're so good at organizing." I stayed another hour, missed my plans. Missed dinner with Julie and 2 other women who'd invited me out. Women who might have become real friends if I'd had the time and energy for them. When I finally left, Denise hugged me and said, "You're the best. I don't know what I'd do without you." I drove home feeling empty instead of appreciated, and I couldn't figure out why until Julie pointed it out later. She said, "I don't know what I'd do without you. Not, 'Thank you for sacrificing your evening.' Not, 'I appreciate you.' She said what she'd do without you, like you're a service, not a person." That's when it clicked. Denise didn't have a best friend. She had a resource. Someone she could call when she needed something. Someone who'd always say yes. And I'd let myself become that. I'd volunteered for it, really, because being needed felt safer than risking rejection. Being useful felt better than being nothing. But I wasn't nothing. I was just treating myself like I was. That's what I was thinking about when Denise texted asking for $5,000. When she sat across from me with that expectant look, so sure I'd say yes, like I always did, and I realized I had a choice. Keep being the person who disappears herself for someone who doesn't even notice. Or finally, after 25 years, say the one word I'd been too afraid to say. After Denise walked out of the coffee shop that day, I sat there for another 20 minutes. My coffee had gone cold. My hands were shaking. Part of me wanted to run after her, apologize, give her the money just to make everything go back to normal. But another part of me, the part that had been silent for 25 years, knew that normal was the problem. My phone buzzed. A text from Denise. "I can't believe you'd do this to me. After everything we've been through, I thought you cared about me." Then another. "I guess money matters more to you than friendship." And another. "You know what? Forget it. I don't need people like you in my life." I stared at those messages, watched the 3 dots appear and disappear as she typed and deleted more things she wanted to say. This was the pattern. This was what always happened when Denise didn't get what she wanted. The guilt trip, the accusations, the emotional manipulation designed to make me feel like the bad person. And it had always worked. But this time, something was different. This time, I saw it clearly. I typed back, "I hope you find a solution to your car problem, but I'm not going to be your solution anymore." I put my phone on silent and drove to Julie's house. "She's texting me," I said when Julie opened the door, "saying I'm choosing money over friendship." "May I?" Julie held out her hand for my phone. I gave it to her, watched her read through the messages. Her expression got harder with each one. "This is textbook manipulation," Julie said. "Look at this. After everything we've been through, What does that even mean? What has she been through with you? Name one time she was there when you went through something hard. I couldn't. She's rewriting history, Julie continued, making it sound like you have this mutual relationship when the reality is you've been her free therapist, bank, and personal assistant for 25 years. But what if I am being selfish? What if I'm abandoning her when she really needs help? Julie sat down across from me. Janet, I want you to do something. Close your eyes and imagine Denise called you right now. Said she was really sorry, she understands why you're upset, and she wants to pay back the money she owes you. Then she asks if you'd like to talk about what's going on in your life. Really asks, really listens. How would you feel? I closed my eyes, tried to imagine it, and realized I couldn't. The scenario was so foreign, so impossible, that my brain couldn't even create the picture. That's your answer, Julie said quietly. You can't even imagine her being there for you because in 25 years she never has been. The next morning Denise called. I almost didn't answer. But some part of me, the part trained by a quarter century of saying yes, couldn't not answer. Janet, please, I'm desperate. My car is at the shop and they won't release it until I pay. I can't get to work. I'm going to lose my job. Is that what you want? For me to lose my job? Denise, I'm sorry you're in this situation, but it's not my responsibility to fix it. How can you say that? You're my best friend. Am I? Because best friends remember each other's birthdays. They show up when someone's parent dies. They ask how you're doing once in a while. Silence. Then, I've been going through a lot. You know my life has been hard. Your life has been hard for 25 years, Denise. And I've been there for every single hard moment. But when my life was hard, where were you? That's not fair. I've always been there for you. Name one time. One specific time you dropped everything to help me. More silence. See, I said, you can't, because you haven't. This friendship has been one-sided for so long, I don't even think you know how to be a real friend anymore. I can't believe this. You're really going to throw away 25 years over $5,000? I'm not throwing anything away. I'm just finally admitting what this has been all along. You needed a resource. I needed to feel needed. But that's not friendship, Denise. That's just two people using each other. I never used you. Everything I asked for, you offered. Because you trained me to offer. Because every time I hesitated, you made me feel guilty. Every time I had boundaries, you pushed past them. You've been manipulating me for so long, I forgot what it felt like to say no. This is unbelievable. You're acting like I'm some monster, like I forced you to do things. You chose to help me. You're right, I chose to, and now I'm choosing not to. That's what boundaries are, Denise. The ability to say no without being made to feel like a terrible person. Fine. Then I guess we're done. If you're not going to help me when I need you, I don't see the point of this friendship. And there it was. The moment that proved everything I'd been realizing. The second I wasn't useful, the friendship was over. Not worth saving, not worth fighting for, just done. I guess we are, I said quietly. She hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand, waiting to feel devastated, waiting for the grief to hit. But all I felt was tired, bone deep, exhausted from 25 years of carrying a friendship by myself. Over the next week, Denise texted 3 more times. Each message was some version of the same thing. Guilt, anger, accusations that I'd abandoned her. But between those messages were things that told the real story. She posted on social media about her car being fixed, tagged her new boyfriend in a post thanking him for helping her out. Apparently, she'd found someone else to solve her problem, someone else to ask instead of me. She'd always said I was the only person she could turn to, that no one else understood her or cared about her the way I did. Turned out that wasn't true. I was just the person most willing to say yes. The easiest target, the path of least resistance. When that path closed, she found another one in less than a week. Julie came over that Friday night with wine and takeout. How are you feeling? Weird, I admitted. I keep expecting to feel worse than I do. That's because you already grieved this friendship. You've been grieving it for years, watching it be one-sided and pretending it was mutual. The only thing that changed is you stopped pretending. I gave her 25 years. No, Julie corrected gently, you gave yourself away for 25 years. There's a difference, and now you get yourself back. That night, I blocked Denise's number, unfriended her on social media. Cut the cord completely, not out of anger, not to punish her, but because I finally understood something fundamental. Some people aren't in your life to walk with you. They're there to see what they can take. And the moment you stop giving, they stop showing up. Denise was never going to change. Never going to suddenly become the friend I'd needed her to be, never going to look back at 25 years and realize what she'd taken without giving back. And I couldn't change her, couldn't make her see me as anything other than a resource. But I could stop volunteering to be one. I could stop answering the phone every time. Stop lending money I couldn't afford to lose. Stop sacrificing my time and energy for someone who wouldn't even remember my birthday. I could, after 25 years of being her unpaid everything, finally be my own priority. 2 weeks after I blocked Denise, I was sitting at my kitchen table on a Saturday morning when I realized something. It was 10 a.m. and my phone hadn't rung once. No crisis calls, no desperate texts, no 3-hour conversations about problems I couldn't fix. Just silence. And for the first time in 25 years, that silence felt like peace instead of guilt. I made coffee, real coffee, the expensive kind I never bought because I was always lending money to Denise. Sat on my balcony and watched the morning happen without anyone needing anything from me. It felt strange, like I'd forgotten how to just exist without being on call. Julie called around 11. "How are you doing?" "Honestly, I don't know. I keep waiting for it to feel terrible, but mostly I just feel quiet." That's not a bad thing. You've been in crisis mode for someone else for 25 years. Quiet is probably what healing feels like. After we hung up, I did something I'd been avoiding. I looked at my calendar and counted all the hours I'd given to Denise over the years. The late-night phone calls averaged 3 hours, happened at least twice a month. That's 6 hours a month, 72 hours a year. For 25 years, 1,800 hours. 75 full days of my life spent listening to the same problems, giving the same advice that was never taken, being the same emotional dumping ground. Then there were the favors. Driving her places, helping her move, watching her kids, organizing her garage, running her errands. Conservative estimate, 4 hours a month. Another 1,200 hours. 50 full days. That's not counting the money, the $11,800 that could have been a down payment on a house, or a year of travel, or anything other than disappearing into someone else's emergencies. I sat there looking at those numbers, 125 days of my life, almost 4 months. Gone. Not into building something, or creating something, or even enjoying something, just gone. And for what? A friendship that ended the moment I stopped being useful? But here's what I realized. I couldn't get those days back, couldn't reclaim that money or that time, but I could stop giving away any more. Monday morning, I did something small but significant. I joined a book club, not one Denise knew about, not one where she could show up and make it about her. A real book club with women I'd never met who knew nothing about me except that I liked to read. We met Wednesday night at a woman's house. Her name was Patricia. She'd retired from teaching last year, had this beautiful home filled with plants and books and the kind of peace I'd forgotten existed. There were 6 of us. We talked about the book for maybe 45 minutes. Then we just talked about our lives, our families, the things we were dealing with. And here's what was different. When I shared something about my week, they listened, asked follow-up questions, remembered details from previous conversations. When Patricia mentioned she was nervous about a medical procedure, another woman offered to drive her. Just offered, without being asked, without expecting anything in return. That's when I understood what I'd been missing. Reciprocity. The basic give and take that makes friendship actually work. I drove home that night thinking about all the years I'd spent believing one-sided relationships were normal, that being the only one who gave was just my role, that some people were helpers and some people needed help and I was a helper. But that wasn't true. I wasn't a helper. I was someone who'd learned to get worth from being needed, and Denise had been more than happy to need me. The next week, I said yes to something I'd turned down for years. A coworker invited me to join her running group. They met Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. For 25 years, Saturday mornings were when Denise usually called with whatever crisis had happened Friday night. I'd always told coworkers I wasn't available Saturdays, but now I was. I showed up that first Saturday terrified I'd be terrible at it, that I'd slow everyone down, that they'd regret inviting me. But they were patient, encouraging. We ran 2 miles and walked 1, and nobody made me feel bad for needing walk breaks. Afterwards, we got coffee, talked about normal things. One woman mentioned she was studying for her real estate license. Another was planning a trip to Italy. Nobody had a crisis. Nobody needed money. Nobody asked me to sacrifice my plans for their emergency. We just existed together, enjoyed each other's company, made plans to run again next week. I drove home sweaty and tired and happier than I'd been in months. That afternoon, I logged into my bank account and did something I should have done years ago. Set up automatic transfers to a savings account. Not much, just $50 every paycheck, but it was mine, not earmarked for someone else's emergency, not available to be borrowed and never repaid. Mine. Within a month, I'd saved $200. By the end of 3 months, I had $700. More money than I'd saved in 5 years, because it wasn't disappearing into Denise's various crises. I started saying yes to things. Dinner invitations I'd always declined because I was too drained from Denise's drama. Weekend trips I'd avoided because what if she needed something? Classes and activities I'd put off because my time and energy were already spoken for. Pottery class on Tuesday nights, a photography workshop one weekend, book club every other Wednesday, running group Saturday mornings. My calendar filled up with things that were mine. Activities that gave me energy instead of draining it. People who knew me as Janet, not as Denise's emergency contact. And the strangest thing happened. I started liking myself again, not the version of me that existed to solve other people's problems, not the Janet who measured her worth by how much she could give away, the real me, the one who had interests and boundaries and a life that belonged to her. 3 months after I said no to Denise, I ran into her at the grocery store. Literally turned a corner, and there she was, standing in the produce section. My first instinct was panic. Turn around, leave, avoid the confrontation. But then I realized I didn't need to. I hadn't done anything wrong. I just finally learned to say no. Denise saw me. Her face went through a series of expressions. Surprise, anger, something that might have been hurt. Janet, Denise. We stood there for a moment, 2 people who used to talk every day, now strangers in a grocery store. "How are you?" she finally asked. "I'm good, really good actually." "You?" "Fine. Things have been hard, but I'm managing. I'm glad to hear that." Another silence. Then Denise said, "I can't believe you just threw away our friendship like that, over money." It wasn't about the money, Denise. It was about everything the money represented. It was about 25 years of me giving and you taking, and neither of us admitting that's what was happening. I never asked you to give me anything you didn't want to give. You're right, you didn't. But you also never said no when I offered. Never checked to see if I could afford it. Never paid any of it back. Never even remembered my birthday. She flinched. So that's what this is about? Birthday cards? It's about basic consideration, basic reciprocity, the fundamental things that make a friendship work. I was a good friend to you. You were a good friend to the version of me that said yes to everything, but the moment I said no, you were done. That tells me everything I need to know. I picked up my basket and walked away. Didn't look back. Didn't wait for her response. And I felt nothing. No guilt, no regret, no urge to apologize or fix things. Just a quiet certainty that I'd made the right choice. That night, I went to book club. Patricia had made her famous pasta. We ate and laughed and talked about everything and nothing. When I left at 10 p.m., Patricia hugged me and said, "I'm so glad you joined us. You add something special to the group." I drove home thinking about that. About being valued for who I was, not what I could provide. About friendships built on mutual respect instead of one-sided need. A month after the grocery store encounter, I got a call from Linda, a mutual friend Denise and I had known for years. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Janet, hi! I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." "Hi, Linda. What's up?" "I wanted to talk to you about Denise. She's really struggling. Did you know her son lost his job? And her car is acting up again. She mentioned you two aren't speaking, and I thought, maybe." "Linda, I'm going to stop you there. Denise and I aren't speaking because our friendship was one-sided for 25 years. That's not going to change because she has new problems. I understand you're hurt, but don't you think this is a bit harsh? She's really going through it right now. She's been going through it for 25 years. And I was there for all of it. Where was she when my mother died? When my father was in the hospital? When I needed anything at all?" Silence. "Then I don't know all the details of your friendship. I just know she's hurting and she says you abandoned her." "I didn't abandon her, Linda. I stopped being her ATM and unpaid therapist. There's a difference. She told me you refused to help her when her car broke down. That you have the money but just won't help. Did she tell you she owes me almost $12,000? That she's never paid back a single loan? That she asked for $5,000 more on top of what she already owes?" Another pause. "She didn't mention that." "I'm sure she didn't." "Look, Linda, I appreciate that you're trying to help. But this isn't a misunderstanding I need to get over. This is a boundary I finally learned to set." After I hung up, I called Julie. "Denise is going through mutual friends now. Linda just called, trying to guilt me into helping." "What did you say?" "That my answer is still no." "But Julie, what if everyone thinks I'm the bad guy? What if they all believe her version?" "Then they weren't your friends anyway. Real friends would ask for your side of the story, not just call to pressure you into giving in." She was right. Linda had called to advocate for Denise, not to check on me. The next week, I got a Facebook message from Denise's daughter, Amy. I'd known her since she was 15. Helped pay for her high school graduation party. Given her money for college textbooks. "Janet, I don't know what happened between you and Mom, but she's really depressed. She says you were her only real friend and now you've turned your back on her. She cries all the time. I've never seen her like this. Can't you two work this out?" I sat with that message for a long time, felt the familiar guilt rising, the urge to fix things, make everything okay, be the bigger person. Then I remembered 25 years of being the bigger person. 25 years of bending until I broke. I wrote back, "Amy, I'm sorry your mum is struggling. But my friendship with her wasn't healthy for me. I can't set myself on fire to keep other people warm. I hope you understand." She didn't respond. 2 mutual friends stopped following me on social media. One sent a message saying she was disappointed in how I'd treated Denise. I didn't try to explain. If they wanted to believe Denise's version without asking for mine, that told me everything I needed to know. But something interesting happened. For every friend I lost in Denise's orbit, I gained something in my new life. Patricia from book club invited me to her daughter's wedding. I barely knew her daughter, but Patricia said, "You've become important to me. I want you there." The running group started meeting for dinner once a month. They called it our running club social hour. We'd talk about books and life and dreams. Nobody needed crisis management, nobody had emergencies, only I could solve. I took a pottery class and actually got good at it. Made a set of coffee mugs I was proud of. The instructor asked if I'd help teach the beginner class next session. Someone valued my skill, not my wallet. I signed up for a photography workshop weekend 3 hours away, booked a hotel room. Spent 2 days learning something new with people who became friends by the end of it. Not once did anyone call me with a crisis that required me to cancel. In the past, I would have never committed to anything more than a day because Denise always needed something that would make me change my plans. But my calendar was mine now. My time was mine. My life was mine. 6 months after I said no to Denise, Julie and I were having our Tuesday coffee when she asked, "Do you miss her?" I miss who I thought she was. I missed the friendship I believed we had. But the real Denise? The person who only called when she needed something? No, I don't miss that. Any regrets? Just one. That I didn't do this 20 years ago. The hardest part wasn't losing Denise. It was facing all the years I'd wasted believing that being needed was the same as being loved. It was recognizing that I'd taught her how to treat me by never having boundaries, that I'd enabled the very behavior that destroyed our friendship. But I couldn't change the past. I could only protect the future. Last month, Denise sent one final text. It came through on a number I didn't have blocked, probably borrowed someone's phone. "I know you've moved on and found new friends. I hope they don't disappoint you the way I apparently did. I hope you never need help and have people turn their backs on you like you did to me. I hope you're happy with your decision." I read it 3 times. Looked for the apology that wasn't there, the acknowledgement of her part that didn't exist, the understanding that never came. And I realized I was looking for something that would never arrive. Denise genuinely believed she'd done nothing wrong. That I was the villain in this story, that she was the victim of a friend who'd abandoned her. She'd never see the 25 years of one-sided giving, never count the money she'd borrowed and forgot, never add up the hours I'd spent being her unpaid everything while she gave me nothing back. And I couldn't make her see it. Couldn't force that realization. Couldn't get the closure of her finally understanding what she'd taken from me. I had to make my own closure, so I deleted the message, blocked that number too, and went to pottery class where I was making a bowl for Patricia's birthday. Because that's what real friends do. They show up for each other's birthdays. They give without expecting something in return. They remember the little things that matter. And after 60 years of life, I'd finally learnt the difference between being needed and being valued, between being used and being loved. It's been a year since I said no to Denise. I'm sitting on my balcony on a Saturday morning drinking coffee from a mug I made in pottery class, and my phone hasn't rung once with a crisis. I'm 61 now, and for the first time in 25 years, I'm not waiting for someone else's emergency to dictate my day. Last weekend, Patricia and I drove to the mountains for a photography workshop. We shared a cabin, stayed up late talking about books and life and the things we wanted to do now that we were finally putting ourselves first. She told me about the 20 years she spent trying to fix her sister's problems, how she finally had to walk away when she realized her sister didn't want solutions, just someone to enable the chaos. "How long did it take you to stop feeling guilty?" I asked. "About 2 years, and then one day I realized I'd gone a whole week without thinking about her. That's when I knew I was free. I'm not there yet. I still think about Denise sometimes, still have moments where I wonder if I was too harsh, if I should have tried harder, given more chances. But then I look at my life now, really look at it. I have $700 in savings. Not much, but it's $700 more than I had when I was lending money I couldn't afford to lose. I have friends who remember my birthday, who call just to check on me, who show up when I need help without me having to beg." Patricia drove me to a medical appointment last month. Sat in the waiting room for 2 hours without complaint. Afterwards, she took me to lunch and asked how I was feeling. Really asked, really listened. When I thanked her, she looked confused. That's what friends do, Janet. And I realized that's what I've been missing all along. The basic reciprocity that makes friendship work, the mutual care that goes both ways. I heard through Linda that Denise found a new best friend. Someone from her church who's apparently very generous and helpful. I felt a pang of sympathy for that person. Wondered how long before they'd reach their limit too. But it wasn't my problem anymore, wasn't my responsibility to warn them or protect them. Everyone has to learn their own lessons about boundaries. The running group ran a 5K last month. I finished in 42 minutes. Not fast, but I finished. And my friends were at the finish line cheering for me like I'd won the Olympics. Denise never came to anything I did. Not in 25 years, never saw me perform in the community theatre production, never came to my master's graduation, never celebrated my achievements unless they happened to benefit her somehow. My pottery instructor asked me to co-teach a class for beginners, said I had a gift for encouraging people. I start next month, getting paid for something I love doing, building something that's mine. Last Tuesday, I was at book club when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. It was Denise. I recognized her voice immediately. Janet, please don't hang up. I just wanted to say I've been thinking about what you said, about the friendship being one-sided. And maybe you were right about some things. I waited, listened. I'm not calling to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know that I miss you, and I'm sorry if I took advantage sometimes. Sometimes, not always, not for 25 years, just sometimes. I appreciate you calling, I said, but I don't think we can go back to being friends. Why not? I said I was sorry. Because an apology isn't enough, Denise. It would take actual change. It would take you showing up for me the way I showed up for you, and I don't think you're capable of that. That's not fair. You're not even willing to give me a chance. I gave you 25 years of chances. Every time you borrowed money and didn't pay it back was a chance. Every time I needed you and you weren't there was a chance. I'm done giving chances to people who don't value them. She hung up without saying goodbye. And I felt nothing but relief that I'd held my boundary. If stories like this resonate with you, if you've ever been the friend who gives until there's nothing left, stay connected. You can like the video and subscribe. We talk about the real things here, the friendships that look beautiful but cost everything underneath. I'm 61 years old. I lost 25 years and almost $12,000 to a friendship that was never really a friendship at all, just a transaction disguised as love. But I gained something too. I gained myself back. I learned that being needed isn't the same as being valued. That saying yes to everyone else means saying no to yourself. That real friendship isn't about one person always giving and another always taking. I learned that you can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. That you can't make someone care about you by being more useful. That sometimes the kindest thing you can do is walk away. Most importantly, I learned that it's never too late to set boundaries. Even after 25 years, even when everyone thinks you're wrong, even when it costs you relationships you thought mattered. Because the relationship that matters most is the one you have with yourself. I don't know if Denise will ever understand what she took from me. I don't know if she'll ever look back and see the pattern. I don't know if she'll treat her next friend any better. But I know I'll never let anyone treat me like that again. I know what real friendship looks like now. It looks like Patricia driving 2 hours to pick me up for a workshop. It looks like the running group celebrating my first 5K like it was the Boston Marathon. It looks like Tuesday night book clubs where everyone gets to talk and everyone gets heard. It looks like reciprocity, like mutual respect, like two people choosing each other, not one person using the other. At 61, I'm finally learning what I should have known at 35. That your time has value, that your friendship has worth, that you don't have to earn love by being useful, you just have to be you. And the right people will value that without you having to prove it. So if you're in a friendship where you're always giving and never receiving, where you're always the one who shows up and they're never there when you need them, where you feel more like a resource than a person, I want you to hear this. You deserve better. You deserve reciprocity. You deserve friendships that fill you up instead of drain you dry. And saying no to people who use you isn't mean, it isn't selfish, it isn't wrong. It's the first step towards saying yes to yourself. After 25 years, I finally took that step. And my only regret is that I didn't take it sooner.